I was over the moon. I finally booked a national commercial. I was going to make a lot of money, most money I've ever had as an actor. I never saw this commercial. It never aired. I have no idea what happened to it. But I did become eligible to join the union, which is a notch. When you become eligible or when you become part of the union, you're perceived as a more serious actor. In fact, if you go to LA and you're not in the union, there are some exceptions because you can work non-union jobs, but you're not really taken as seriously. It's also a lot easier now to join the union. They're pretty much signing up anybody that does like a new media project. And that's a little strategy I know some fellow actors have put into the works, and they became union eligible. So I was super bummed about the Walmart thing, but at the same time, there was good news that came from it. Then I did a regional Toyota FJ Cruiser commercial, which made me around $3,300. That was pretty cool. And that was the moment my mom realized I can actually make money acting. She fronted me on a MacBook Pro because back in the day, she didn't want me to dabble in credit cards. So she said she would act as the creditor. So she got me the MacBook Pro. I was going to pay her payments until one weekend I came back from Dallas and paid her in full cash money. She looked at me and did a double take and had some thoughts that maybe I took on a different, not so legal hobby. But I showed her the check stub and all was well. Flash forward to LA, I shoot this commercial, feel good, then things got complicated. Around 6 months of having been in LA, I decided that I'm going to help a new friend of mine make a movie. I figured this friend being connected in the business, I didn't have much experience. Making a movie could help change the trajectory of my career. I had the belief and the willpower to see it through. The movie in question took almost 5 years to complete with a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and a lot of my own money that I raised. It consumed me. I even did the craft services on this film, which is providing food and snacks and drinks for people.
Excuse me? You double dipped the chip.
I thought if I could help make this movie and it becomes a hit, then it'll be my turn to shine. My fellow producers and I had a pact that we would focus on 2 actors for one project and then focus on the other 2. After all, you can't have more than 2 people be the focal point of an ensemble and share screen time. Okay, maybe you can, but you have to believe it to be true, and you have to back it up with good storytelling, acting, comedy skills. While this film project was going through its ups and downs, I figured, why not make a ton of money so I can self-finance the next film? So I decided to get involved in a startup. The idea was to digitize the submission process. At the time, if you wanted to submit to agents and managers, the traditional way was to send your headshot via snail mail. Even back then, it seemed a bit primitive. It was expensive, very time-consuming. It cost me like $80 to send 100 headshots. I got 2 responses. One was, no, we don't have any space to represent you. And the second one, turns out, asked every actor who submitted to them to come to a meeting. It was a little bit of a ruse. Not really. It just wasn't a great agency. This was yet another project that I got involved with a few partners hoping to strike it big. I didn't want to wait around for a phone call, aka opportunities. I wanted to create my own. I ended up exiting that company after 3 years of messing with different programmers, glitches, and dumping more of my own savings into a pit that didn't seem to have any promise. My decision actually came from not feeling like all partners were equally committed. I knew I would eventually resent some of them. The first mistake was partnering with friends because we liked each other. There were red flags everywhere. When people talk too much about their goals, they subconsciously feel like they have done something to move forward. But in reality, it's far from the case. The biggest skill I learned through all of this was the art of cold calling. I actually got a stranger in Nashville ask me to send him our business proposal after he liked what I had to say, after he liked my pitch. I literally went through the phone book or Yellow Pages, wherever, seeking money this way. It was wild and a bit of a thrill, like a scene from the movie Boiler Room.
It was a pleasure doing business with you. Done and done.
One of the producers and I were pretty hooked on this activity. I mean, we literally turned nothing into something, but that didn't last long either. We ended up making the film for only close to 50 grand instead of the original $500,000 budget. Got only accepted into 1 film festival and got a midnight screening, aka nobody would watch it. I did learn how not to make a movie, and I chalked this up as a real-world film school. One day, on a whim, I decided to go to Mexico to learn Spanish. It was an idea that was sparked by an agent telling my friend that if you look ethnic, knowing Spanish could significantly improve your chances of getting more auditions, and being that this whole thing's a numbers game, maybe even a job. I agreed to drop everything and move to Mexico, all for the big picture of making it as an actor. I told my property management company that I'm leaving. This was a good gig too. I mean, I was living rent-free in LA. I made a little bit of money on top of the free rent, and this was a little hack, which I talk about in a video I'll put in the description below. The ultimate hack of living without the stress of needing to make a lot of money. That property management gig was something I'll never forget. Okay, so I got the blessing of both my theatrical and commercial agent. Once I was ready to go to Mexico, my friend who had put this plan together put it on the back burner and said he forgot to make some other arrangements and that he would eventually meet up. So I was on my own. I barely knew any Spanish.
Tango el gato, los pantalones.
Maybe a sentence or two, but decided to keep the momentum of this delusional confidence going, and I went anyway. I came back from Mexico 5 months later feeling newly inspired, having some Spanish in my back pocket. I knew some French, so I think it was a little bit easier for me to pick it up, considering I went to classes 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, became friends with my teachers, and English-speaking friends were not really around. I chose to move to a city called Guanajuato, Mexico. Not too many expats lived there, and the ones that I met spoke absolutely fluent Spanish, and I was able to convince them to speak to me in Spanish, so English wouldn't be a crutch. It forced me to learn the language, which was a technique that I heard would work, and I think it did for the long run. So now that I was back in LA, I made it a point to get focused on getting good. I found the best audition technique classes, and I really worked hard at being present, and also learning to let go, not putting too much pressure on myself. I did the work. If I knew deep down that I put in that effort, once the audition was done, it was out of sight, out of mind. I moved on. I was not going to sacrifice my dream for someone else's anymore. I would not work on any project that would take focus away from my acting career. I refused to produce anything that I wasn't in. In fact, I made a short film for myself, and I'll also include that link below. It's on my YouTube channel. It's called KASRA. I funded it myself. I hired my writer friend. I had a producer friend of mine who wanted to produce. He actually wanted to be a producer. So we joined forces and made a short, and it got into more festivals than the other film and led to some bigger and better things. It was not easy. The 3-day shoot was brutal. 14-hour days shooting, followed by me driving the U-Haul truck full of gear back to my apartment complex. But of course, like I said, it led to bigger and better things. I met other creators. It also boosted my confidence. I knew I could actually create something that people would watch and give me credit for as an actor producer. Auditions were no longer intimidating, and I finally, after 7 years in LA, booked my first host star on the show The Catch on ABC. I had auditioned for one role and left feeling really good about it, but then they offered me the role of Raul.
The soothing sounds of Raul, ladies and gentlemen.
Which sounded much better than Mormon Missionary number 2. No offense to Mormon missionaries, but any credit with a number in it is kind of deemed as a lower tier co-star. So I felt like I finally figured out what it takes to win the audition room. I was excited to share the news with my acting class. We celebrated. I get up the next day, ready to be on set. I show up to my trailer, feeling good, look through the script, and I have no lines.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I took it on the chin. I'm not gonna lie. It sucked. After all of that, I booked a role with a name, but didn't get to say a single word. I even almost tried to blurt out a word or convince the director to let me, but I ended up chickening out. The reason this didn't hurt me though in the long run is because after all of the failures, the ups and downs, I won at something when I put my dream first, and now I was ready more than ever. I was ready to audition left and right, and I was no longer intimidated by what other actors look like. This was a momentum boost that I needed, and it led to bigger and better things. I even eventually got hired by the director everybody pretty much has on their bucket list to work with. I booked a film directed by the legend himself, Clint Eastwood. Hope you like this story of the 7-year gap and how I overcame putting other people's dreams in front of my own. Hope you learned something from this, that you also know that you shouldn't put other people's dreams in the way of your own. If you want to hear my story of what it was like working with Clint Eastwood, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll move it up my list. Also, if you have a dream and you want to share it, comment below. I'd like to read about what other people's dreams are.
This is Raul.